projection.
Welcome everybody to the most anticipated podcast in the history of podcasts. It is Takin on Sports here. I am TD Wood. That is Greg Bosworth. For all of you people who have been waiting for the Lowdown's glorious return after, I don't even want to say how many years.
It's been quite some time.
It's back, baby. It's back. Greg, how you been, man?
I'm good. How are you today, sir?
Oh, we're beautiful, man. We are here on the Alabama Takes latest podcast, giving you everything you need to know about sports. No need for any other sports content. All right, we are going to begin today with what else? College football, our college football preview. We'll talk a little Alabama, of course, talk a little bit of the boys, and anything else that might come to our mind. So, Greg, let's start. How's Alabama going to do this year? We're going to, obviously be back in the title hunt, right?
You definitely would think so. I mean, just with all the pieces of coming back, of course, it was well documented. The Heisman Trophy winner, the best defensive player in America coming back. Big pick up there with Jahmyr Gibbs at the running back position. If you go off just our history of recent years, and then, of course, just the expectations. I mean, there's no reason to think we're not in the hunt come, November, December there to get into this year's playoff.
All right. Well, let's start there. You mentioned last year's Heisman winner, Bryce Young at quarterback.
Sure.
Can he get even better this year? I mean, the receiving corps, they're not going to be as strong, or at least we don't know that yet. They might. We didn't really know what we had last year in Jameson Williams, and then, he became the man.
Right.
But we might have a better offensive line this year. So do you think he can put up similar or even better numbers this year?
I think he could definitely put up similar numbers. It's not going. I think it's going to be more. It's going to be more dispersed. It's not going to be a two-headed monster like we had last year. Mitchie and Jameson Williams. I don't think he's going to be throwing the ball more spots. But I think there's going to be more of a focus too on the running game and short passes with Gibbs in the backfield, more so than what we saw last year. So
that's for sure. Yeah, I think Gibbs is going to be huge in this offense. I think he'll be kind of Najee Harris in the way that we just use him all over in passing game, running game, all that. I agree with you, man. I think I don't know what we have yet, but obviously we trust our coaching staff to recruit talent.
For sure.
So I'm excited to see next week. It's just Utah State, but I'm excited to see how the offense looks. Yeah. Kind of new look offense with the same guy running it. And then we move on to Heisman candidate number 2, Will Anderson. Like you said, best defense player in the country. It's not even an argument. How legit is his Heisman candidacy? Does he have a real shot at it?
It's so tough for a defensive player, as we all know. I mean, he doesn't have the split stuff like Charles Woodson or anything like that. I mean, he's not going to be on the offensive side, and he has so much hype. We know how good he is, but if he does last year's numbers, he probably gets to New York, but he's going to have to do even more, I think, to win the Heisman, just because of how the Heisman is set up, which is crazy to think, but that's just the way it is. I mean, you got to look. I mean, if Ndamukong Suh couldn't have won, of course, I got Mark 1, but, as good as Ndamukong Suh and dominant as he was in 2009, if he couldn't win, I'm not sure if just flat-out defensive player will ever win the Heisman, to be honest. But if anybody is going to do it, I mean, he going into the season, having the hype that he has, it definitely helps him out. But until we actually see someone do it, I just don't believe it's going to happen. But if anybody is ever going to do it right now, I mean, it's a perfect situation. I mean, I think should have been in New York last year. Maybe a little biased, but I mean, I think a lot of people agree with that assessment. And if he's anything like he was last year, which of course there's no reason to say he isn't going to be, there's a time, it's now. But like I said, until I see it, I'm not gonna believe that a defensive only player is gonna win the Heisman. But
For sure, for sure. Yeah, it's pretty much impossible for a guy like him to do it without putting up just insane numbers and being so unbelievably dominant. Like he's going to have to break, like a single game sack record and maybe a single season sack record.
right, yeah, it's
I
gonna
mean, he might murder a quarterback live on TV this year.
definitely
I think
possible.
he's going to if he stays healthy, he's just going to have an unbelievable year.
Right.
Along with the rest of that defense, I think the defense will be really improved this year. And with that, we talked about, what's stopping them really. Looking at the Alabama schedule, where is there a loss is what I'm looking at in the regular season. Obviously, things happen. We didn't expect to lose to Texas A&M last year.
Yeah,
But, I mean, we open with Utah State at home
yeah.
next week, and they're a decent opponent, but we're going to win by,
That's just
30 or so.
that's just to get the guys going, see how folks look. And of
Mhm.
course, a lot of people are looking at that week 2 game in Austin. I'm not too worried about that game. I mean, because that's been talked about so much, has so much hype, and I mean, they're going to be starting their new quarterback. So, and they don't have the offensive line. Dallas Turner and Will are going to be in that backfield all day. So that game doesn't bother me.
No,
Looking
I
at
think
the
that could be – go ahead.
no, I mean, I just don't see that one. Really, it's kind of strange. I mean, really, the only 2 spots, and usually it's I'm always been worried about November. The LSU, the Auburn game this year. I'm not. It's at October. Not it's not even the A&M game. It's just that stretch. Going to Fayetteville. That place. If they're going to that game undefeated, Fayetteville is going to be like that Texas game last year. That atmosphere is going to be wild. And
For
then,
sure, for sure.
of course, the third Saturday in October might finally be a game again. I mean, their offense on paper, that offense is nice. We know that they put up numbers, and if they come into that game undefeated, I mean, Knoxville is going to be rocking.
Yeah, that's if anyone's wondering here, you don't know Alabama's October schedule. It opens on the 1st at Arkansas, then home for Texas A&M in Knoxville for the 3rd Saturday, as Greg said, and then ends home against Mississippi State, which that Mike Leake offense is always, you never know how that's going to go. In that Tennessee game last year, remember that was close up until like 8 minutes left before
We got
Alabama
that.
just really turned on the Jets. Yeah.
We got that.
But yeah, I'm with you that that's the trickiest stretch this year is October. It's loaded in October. After that state game, they get a break, and then they go at LSU, at Ole Miss. That could be tricky. You never know what old Lane Kiffin's got up his sleeve. And then Austin P and the Iron Bowl to end it. Yeah, it's just looking at that. We're going to be favored every game. Again, it's tough to pick out a game right now where you see, yep, that's probably one they'll lose. Which I guess we can go ahead and that'll transition us, into our national title picture. We'll talk about that. Do you think we're getting back to the Blue Bloods this year? We had Cincy and Michigan last year. It looks like Ohio State might be the most talented team in the country this year. You think they'll be back? We got Clemson should be back on the radar. So what do you think? Are we going to go back to the kind of the big boys again, or is there going to be a new Michigan or Cincinnati this year?
Kind of. Well, definitely, I think Big Ten gets back to Ohio State's. I mean, just with that, of course, the big question is going to be how is their defense. And, they got a new defensive coordinator from Oklahoma State coming in. They're going to be way more aggressive, I think, and I think that they're going to get back to doing what they do. I mean, they had those, the setback early against Oregon last year at home, and of course they finally lost to Michigan. But I mean, I don't see that happening again. I'd be shocked if anybody else wins that Big Ten East other than Ohio State, which pretty much would set them up for for a playoff spot, I'd say, because I mean, I don't see them losing to Michigan in Columbus. I don't see I don't see Michigan State being as good as they were last year. You never know about Penn State. I mean, they're always they're tricky at times, but I think we'll get a better idea how they are after they go down to Auburn, kind of like last year with them. James Franklin will have them ready, but I just that offense is stacked at Ohio State. I mean, they'll probably C.J. Stroud, another, of course, favorite for the Heisman. They have what's it? I can't pronounce his name. The white.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. Yeah, the most talented team in the Big Ten by far. That offense is going to be ridiculous. They're going to put up video game numbers.
Right.
I don't. They'll be out for blood against Michigan. I don't really see same thing looking with Alabama. I don't see the loss in their schedule this year
exactly.
either.
I mean, if either one loses, it's going to be a game where they did something to beat themselves. Weird interceptions. Just one of those fluke-like Cinderella-like things that happen in college football, which makes it such a great sport. But yeah, I mean, no one. If Alabama and Ohio State are on, there's no one that's going to beat them in the regular season.
Yeah. So, we said, obviously, we talked about Michigan. Jim Harbaugh's guys made it to the playoff last year, finally got over that Ohio State hurdle. Can they sustain that success? I mean, can they keep it going, build on that, or was that a flash in the pan? Are they going to go back to 8-4 Michigan, or are they still going to be? Are they actually going to give Ohio State a challenge every year now?
I think that they have the foundation to be good. There's been seasons where they've had 1 and 2 losses on the season just so they didn't get over that Ohio State bump. But their biggest thing is what they do with their quarterback situation. Saw like McNamara's starting week 1, and then the freshman starting week 2, and I guess week 3 they're going to determine where they want to go with that. So, kind of.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. That's old Steve Spurrier model
Exactly.
almost. Just throw them both out there and see
what
who
happens.
sticks. Yeah, right. But I mean, yeah, they have another good schedule too. They out of conference schedule, nothing going there. And then they get Penn State and Michigan State at home, and they have to end the year in Columbus. But
yeah, I mean, outside of Columbus, I was looking at that Michigan schedule, and the only other game that's kind of a tricky one is I think it's that first Saturday on October 1st, going to Iowa City. I mean, Iowa at home is a completely different team. The crowd, man, they're going to be rocking, and we've seen strange things happen in Kinnick before several times in the Big Ten plays. So definitely going to be Michigan's first test of the season for sure.
For sure. All right. Let's move on. Let's see who else we got. Clemson. They missed last year, had a down year for them. They finished 9-3.
Right.
Just did not look good on offense at all. Defense was there. They're talented.
Yeah.
But so a couple of questions. One, will they be back? And two, is Dabo's kind of refusal to use the transfer portal to plug in holes, a la like Saban does, going to get a receiver here, a defensive back there to plug in our needs before a freshman's ready. Is that going to hold Clemson back? Is that kind of starting to put them behind the Alabamas and Ohio States and Georgias?
I mean, it's hard to say just because last year was their first, you could say, I guess, down season for a while. We got accustomed to them running through the ACC and pretty much being locked for the playoff. At the same time, I mean, they had two once-in-a-lifetime quarterbacks almost back-to-back. I mean, they had Deshaun Watson, and, of course, they had Trevor Lawrence. And, there was a lot of hype for DJ last year, but it was based off one performance at Notre Dame. Mm-hmm. And so people thought, he's just going to step in and be the guy. And he had big shoes to fill. I mean, Trevor Lawrence was possibly a once in a generation type quarterback at Clemson.
Mm-hmm.
But then now it's interesting because the pressure's on. I mean, that 5-star came in, he's sitting right there, ready to go. DJ starts off the season like he did last year, and there's gonna be quick talk. get the young guy in there. We've already seen enough DJ, and we know. So if he hasn't improved significantly, it could get quite interesting as far as um, what happens at Clemson. Uh, the other big thing, that we look at Clemson, they've had that success. And there was all that talk. Oh, the big thing is they kept all their coordinators. They haven't done what Alabama did. And, we're switching coordinators all the time. Defensive guys go here or there. And this is their first time, they've really experienced that, losing their offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator, the head coaching spots in the same season. That's a new thing for Clemson for the most part, especially at the same time. I think the defense is still going to be stacked. It's just a matter of can the offense match them.
For sure, yeah, and they really don't get tested till their fourth game. They go to Winston-Salem to play at Wake Forest, then they get NC State the next week at home,
Right.
And then they get a little tricky to begin November. They go at Notre Dame the 5th of November.
Right.
Then they'll be home for Louisville and Miami. And so let's stay in the ACC and transfer to that opponent right there, the U. Does Mario Cristobal, is he going to bring him back finally?
I mean, the way he came in, I mean, a lot of hype. We've seen him at Miami hype before. The U was back, supposedly coming into last year. They were going to come back, and after we bashed them in that opening game, I mean, they kind of never they never really bounced back. But Mario's in there now. Great recruiting so far. I mean, they hit their recruiting. The NIL money flowing in Miami with that big booster.
Oh boy, is it ever?
And I mean, if there's a time to do it, it's definitely this year. I mean, you look at that division that they're in. And you look, I mean, Pittsburgh is on that side. I mean, they're still going to be tough, but they're not going to be the same. I mean, replacing the Heisman finalists from last year and staying in the same town as a Steeler now, but I mean, that's big. I mean, you're replacing the Blitnikoff winner and wide receiver. I mean, so they're going to be down a little bit. I mean, I think that, there's still going to be a decent team, but they're going to be down a little bit. We don't know what North Carolina is going to really be. I mean, I watched some of that game last night. They got off to a slow start against FAMU, who was down like 20-some players. And, Miami has that quarterback is nice. He definitely is he's going to possibly, if he is consistent like how he ended last season, he'll be a contender for the Heisman. But at the end of the day, until Miami does it, there's no reason to. I mean, we've heard this time and time again. Miami's back, the U is back, and they always find a way to mess it up.
Yeah, right. We'll find out again. They have another kind of early season challenge. Week 3, they go at Texas A&M.
That should be a very interesting game.
It'll be a primetime game. That'll be a fun one. Other than that, they got a pretty favorable schedule until the end when they go to they end the season at Clemson and then home for Pitt. But like you said, no Kenny Pickett. Everything right now, the hype around the program, his recruiting, looks like he at least is in better position to bring the U back than maybe some of his predecessors,
And it's just been
it should be something to watch.
Right. I mean, it's just been so weird just, the last 20 years of that program being so ho-hum. We know how good they were, that 01. It seems like ever since they lost that questionable Rose Bowl against Ohio State without, that call, they've been down ever since. And then, Mario, he of course went to the U, as we know. He loves it. We know he can recruit. I mean, that's the thing. He's going to have to lock down what Miami used to lock down, which, hasn't been that way for, 20 years now.
Yeah, that's yeah, we'll see. They really should, according to their talent, they really should win the Coastal Division and probably meet up with Clemson in the ACC title game. I mean, North Carolina's there too with Mac. I don't see
Yeah.
them
I mean,
taking the
they're there,
division
but
this
it's
year.
just a different situation altogether. But, just
Yeah,
see what they have. And if there's I think the most interesting team in that other side with Clemson is going to be North Carolina State. Um, Returning with 17, 18 players this year. The quarterback Leary last year was outside of Bryce and CJ had the best touchdown interception ratio in America. So I think that'll be interesting just to see. But of course, going into Clemson, that's gonna possibly be their downfall. But if anybody's gonna give Clemson a run in that Atlantic, it'll definitely be NC State because talent wise, they're there.
for sure. Yeah, there are a lot of people hyping them up as a contender to challenge Clemson in that division, a 10-win
All right.
team. Um, we got Florida State there. Yeah, we'll see. With Florida State, they're still.
We're gonna learn a
I
lot
think
about.
Jimbo really did a number. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jimbo really did a number on that program. Yeah, and I think they still got a couple years to really rebuild to where they should and could be.
Yeah, for sure. I think we're really gonna learn a lot about them this coming up week one. Well, they're week two, but of course week one for everybody else. Uh, you know, in the Superdome against LSU,
Mm-hmm.
prime time Sunday
Mm-hmm.
night. All eyes are gonna be on that game. If it's a time for Florida State to kind of give, we're not what we've been the last couple of years. That's a time to set that tone and send that message.
For sure, yeah. And then it doesn't get easier for them after that. They go to Louisville, and then they get Boston College at home, and then
Yeah,
Wake Forest, and before going at NC State, and then Clemson.
yeah,
So Florida State's going to go through it early in the
they
year.
definitely are.
Um, yeah, but let's see. All right, so we already talked pretty much everything Big Ten we can talk. Let's move to the Big 12. I guess the big stories this year, it's Texas in year two under Sark, and then Oklahoma under Brent Venables. The new era there. Do we expect Oklahoma to bounce back and take the conference again, or is the rest of the Big 12 still rallying around the two most hated programs now?
you know, you look at like what I mean. OU's it's just so strange, just because of you don't think of somebody leaving OU to go somewhere else. They're a football
Mm-hmm.
powerhouse, and of course we're in different world, and it makes sense why he left to go to USC. But it's just so different in the world that we're in. Just you know, coach has been to two playoffs. You with good in good standing, and he up and goes. But I think they answered as well as they could. With their hire, bringing Venables in. Bringing in the Jeff Lebby there at the offensive coordinator spot, and he bringing in his former quarterback from UCF. They've answered as well as a program possibly could, coming in. A lot of shocking situations for them. Um, I think it's just a matter of we're gonna see just what they do. We've come so accustomed to OU pretty much winning the Big 12 with their eyes closed. So we'll see if Brent Venables gets back to that. I think they have the possibility to, um, but I think it's gonna be kind of kind of neck and neck at the top there. I mean, I think Baylor. Well, you know what Dave Aranda did but the two years that he's been there has been impressive. That defense has been nasty. They got
Mm-hmm.
the new quarterback this year, so I mean that's a little transition there. Um, but Baylor will be right there. But that'll be a revenge game for OU, and it'll be in Norman, so that's gonna be Okie State is still a pretty talented team. But yeah, I mean, I, it's one of those things. I'm just going back and thinking OU, and OU wins the conference. I mean, it wouldn't shock me if they do lose, but just for how dominant they've been, I just don't see them immediately going, down. I just think that
Yeah, for sure. It's yeah, it seems to be that's where we're going back to the Sooners taking it before you know they get out and come to the SEC. I do think Texas will be better this
oh
year
yeah,
in year two under Sark than they were.
they have to be better.
I think B. John Robinson will really get some Heisman hype. Yeah, oh yeah, they have to be better, right? Yeah, yeah. Oklahoma's schedule, if we go back to them real quick, that it's nothing. That's easy schedule. They get Bedlam's in Norman this
Right.
year. That like you said, that Baylor game's in Norman. They do have to go at Iowa State. We know how tough that place is.
Yeah.
Um, Iowa State loves to beat them. Some Oklahoma
They
too.
seem to have the number.
Texas,
Yeah.
obviously we know the big game week 2.
Right.
Yeah. It's one of those weird things, man.
And
Texas, they have to go to Stillwater to play Oklahoma State. They end the year home against Baylor. I think they'll be better. I don't think they're a national title contender or anything yet, but maybe a New Year's Six Bowl is not out of the question for
sure.
Texas this year. If they can, if that offense can get humming, if that quarterback, was it
Quinn Ewers.
Quinn Ewers?
Right. Yeah, Ewers.
Yeah, if he's everything
That they think he is.
Yeah, if he's everything that they hope he is, he can run that offense. Yeah, and Baylor, like you said, I pretty much agree with everything you said. Baylor and Oklahoma State will be in the conversation because they're there. But yeah, I think it's Oklahoma's to lose. All right, and then really, they probably should be in the hunt for the national or the playoff at least. Like I said, with that schedule, yeah.
I mean, unless
Yeah.
the only thing that really I would think that keeps OU out of the playoff is if they win the Big 10, the Big 12, but have like 2 losses, something like that. I mean, I think even this year, just with how I think things will be, if they win the Big 12 with 1 loss, they're in unless we have some unexpected undefeated teams somewhere.
For sure. All right, let's go to where Oklahoma's former coach Lincoln Riley ran off to, the Pac-12. He is now in lovely Los Angeles, USC. Everyone is hyping them up this year like they're a college playoff contender, and I mean, I think Riley will get them humming again. Like maybe not Pete Carroll level, but I think he'll be close, and they should be contending for, if not winning, the Pac-12 now, maybe they'll win it for a couple years before they go off to the Big Ten.
Was it like 1 or 2 years left?
Yeah, who knows all that stuff. But yeah, so my question is, does the Pac-12 have a legitimate college football playoff contender this year? Be it USC or Oregon or somebody.
Another team that's getting a lot of hype is Utah. They bounced.
Sure.
They had that. Even though they didn't win, just the way they played with Ohio State in that Rose Bowl. I mean, got them a lot of hype coming into the season there. Their quarterback is back again. They always have a stout defense, but it seems like they have an offense kind of go with that. Kyle Whittingham is maybe one of the most underrated coaches in America. I mean, he's been at Utah for quite some time now, and always has decent teams, talent wise, especially on the offensive side. This might be one of his better ones. Um, so I think they're definitely in the mix. Oregon, we're going to see what Oregon has. I mean, of course, new coach. Um, you know, probably Bo Nix at the starting quarterback, and talented, but we'll there's still Oregon. They have that known history of finding ways to blow games. Weird things happen. But it's interesting. The Pac-12 is interesting because there's USC hype, the Utah hype, um, and the rest. I guess you could say Oregon and maybe UCLA are kind of in the mix. But you know, it's you know it's hard to think that USC is just going to come in, even though they new Lincoln Riley. I think, as you said, will get things going again. Um, but can they? There's going to be a lot of pressure, and if they do get it, I wouldn't be shocked if they get it back in year one, just because they have lot of talent there. But just one of those things you just have to see it, just because we haven't seen USC to the levels of the hype that people think that they're going to get back to immediately. It's been quite some time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they really don't have, USC. They do end the season home against Notre Dame. That's their big out of
Correct.
conference. Other than that, their big one, October 15th, they go to Utah.
Yeah.
Like you said, those are probably your two contenders for the title
Yeah.
this year. I think Oregon. We'll see what Oregon's made of next week. They open big one, Georgia.
Yeah. And Atlanta will.
It doesn't get bigger than that. Defending national champion. So, yeah, in Atlanta, so basically a home game for the Dogs. So yeah, we'll see what Oregon's about right away. If they get blown out the water, we don't need to worry about them. If they hang or even beat Georgia, then hey, maybe we pay attention to the Ducks until they lose to like Arizona or something.
Exactly.
Yeah, USC. Yeah, like you said, so much talent there. They should be up there. They should challenge for the title, the conference title, and then I don't know if they'll have enough to make a run at the playoff. But hey, things bounce their way. Undefeated Pac-12 champ or maybe a one-loss Pac-12 champ might have a good shot at getting in.
I mean, that's the thing. USC's that one team out the Pac-12 with one loss, just with the hype and there's the national attention that would get, the playoff committee would be it'd be hard to keep them out unless it's, undefeated teams, other spots that are Power 5. But, yeah, I mean, they're definitely, they're one loss. I mean, they're definitely in the conversation. And the interesting thing, too, is the Pac-12 got rid of the North and the South division already. So they're, we might see, USC and Utah twice.
That's true. Yeah. And then elsewhere, you mentioned UCLA. Yeah, Chip Kelly just hasn't seemed to really.
I mean, they had a decent season last year when they went 9-3, I think. But yeah,
but just hasn't really gone over that hump. Really hasn't. They haven't made a real challenge for the Pac-12. Title. It seems like they definitely haven't really shown up on a national radar. Because kind of like Oregon, they have some strange losses here and there. Last year losing to Fresno State, that was a weird one. Losing to Arizona State, that
wasn't a good loss.
Speaking of a program that's all kinds of up and down,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but then they blow out USC.
That week one they
yes,
dominated. It was a home game, and LSU came in with a lot of hype in that game. They blew it, dominated them in all assets of the
ran. All over them.
Had a crazy day.
But yeah, you look at Chip Kelly's other seasons, and it's just
this hasn't been.
We don't know what they're doing.
Honestly, I'm still why he ever left Oregon. that first time. I understand the NFL lure and everything of that nature, but he
Hmm.
had things going there. I mean, he was a stud. Like people feared his offense, like, and it just not the same anymore.
Yeah, was a couple plays away from winning a national
Exactly.
title.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's probably one of those decisions he might regret
For sure.
later in life. All right, let's move. Or we already talked Alabama, so let's go with the rest of the SEC now. Obviously, we got to start with the champs, Georgia. They
Oh
earned
yeah.
that. Um,
There.
they should be back this year, right? It should be another Bama Georgia SEC title
Yeah.
game. Stetson Bennett, we can talk bad about him all we want, but he
He
wins games,
wins.
man.
I mean, there's always that talk. That was always the fear last year. Oh, he's gonna be the reason Georgia loses a game. There was always that talk that
Yep.
if they don't lose a game, if they lose a game, it's gonna be because he didn't do something. But I mean, he stepped up to the plate and handled business. And I mean, he's never gonna be the sexiest quarterback in the room. He's never gonna be the 4,000-yard passer. But that's not what Georgia is anyway. I mean, we know them to be a great running team. That defense. I mean, they've lost a lot to the draft, as we know, but I mean, they're still going to be good. And then, of course, a lot of teams that lose the defense coordinator like they did, and it'd be a problem. But I mean, they had a guy right there, um, to step in with Will there. So I mean, that's no drop off at the defensive coordinator spot. Yeah, there's really nothing that of course, a loss could happen, as we all know. But yeah, I mean, right now, there's nothing saying, no glaring signs that show anything other than Bama, Georgia, and Atlanta come December.
Yeah, and probably a matchup of two unbeaten teams too. Because Georgia's schedule. Looking at it real quick, we mentioned the Oregon game to
Right.
open. They get Auburn, Florida, and Tennessee all at home. Their toughest road game is at Kentucky, second to last week in the
Right.
season, and that's if Kentucky's good. We don't know how they're losing and replacing
Exactly.
some parts themselves. So it'll be interesting to see where they go. I don't really see a challenger for them in the East.
No.
Florida, first year under Billy Napier, talented. There's usually a bump, that first year bump. So, he'll need to, and what am I trying? He'll need to imprint, his attitude and
Exactly.
the culture he wants
Right.
there first before I think they can challenge. Tennessee, they're only up. We mentioned it, but they're not Georgia level yet. They could pull an upset. I think they're more likely to beat Florida
Right.
or something than
Exactly.
Georgia. But and then Vanderbilt, Missouri, South Carolina,
Yeah.
they're
I
there.
mean,
Over in the West, go ahead.
what I was gonna say in the East, a lot of South Carolina's gotten a lot of hype this year. Uh, but I mean, with bringing in Spencer Rattler, building off that winning season last year, but whatever that was worth, I mean, they were of course playing a North Carolina team who didn't really care. I'd say. I mean, they had a big disappointment, and the last couple of wins against the Florida team that had pretty much given up on life. Missouri, so it'll be interesting to see what they do to build on that culture. I think Beamer is a good coach. I think he's gonna uh, make them a formidable team again, where you have to take them serious. That hadn't been that way for a while. Spencer Rattler will be interesting just to see if he gets back to that 2020 type um, level that he was at in 2020 there in Norman. If he can get back to that in Columbia, definitely not so much a contender to beat Georgia, even though that game is in Columbia this year. But that'd be interesting. That second spot is wide open, so that would be interesting to see in the East. I'd say it wouldn't shock me to see South
Mm-hmm.
Carolina, Kentucky, Florida, Tennessee, all if any of those four win, second wouldn't shock me. I think that'll be interesting to see just how things go there. But yeah, in the
For sure.
West
And
though. We know the West is a monster.
No, yeah, the West is
The
stacked
West is a monster.
as always. One more thing about the East
Sure.
before we go there. Just another big opening game to mention. Florida does host Utah to open the year,
Yeah,
so we'll learn something about the Gators then.
that'll be interesting.
That's a big one. And then I think they turn around. Let me check the schedule real quick.
The Tennessee game's coming pretty quick after that.
Yeah, host Utah, and then they host Kentucky second week.
That is interesting.
That's the 24th of September in Knoxville. So, yeah, Florida, we'll know what they're made of, after the first 4 weeks. They got South Florida at home before Tennessee in between there. So, we'll see. All right, moving to the West, it's Alabama. And then second place is, A&M's obviously getting all the big hype this year. But I don't know. We'll see. They offer the big Alabama win and all that talk. They still were an 8-4 team last year. Jimbo still hasn't really lived up to that contract. In college, not yet in College Station. Then we got, we mentioned Arkansas earlier. That's a tough team. That's a program on the rise, going places. And they're a tough team. Just the way they play, they wear you down. Kind of an old school team in a modern world. Here, let's stay in the same state as our beloved Crimson Tide. What the hell's going on in the plains at Auburn, man? Is that just that's just a plane crash waiting to happen?
So, it's not a shocker that they fired their AD, but do that in January, do that in February. But that is such an Auburn thing. I mean, they do so much to kill their own program. I mean, it's just crazy. The people, the board, or the decision makers behind the curtain at Auburn. I mean, they've done so much to wreck the program over the year. You go back to when Tommy Tupperville is winning games, and they're flying up to Louisville supposedly to get their next coach. We've seen that. We've so many things. There's such head scratchers, but the thing that always scares me, and Auburn as well as I do, and if not more so, is when nobody expects Auburn to do anything, is when Auburn does the weirdest.
That's when they get a 10-win season. Mm-hmm.
And they have nothing to lose this year. Nothing. I mean, at this point, they pretty much said, firing the AD. I mean, he was basically the coach's lifeline at Auburn. If it wasn't for the AD sticking up for him last year, he's out the door. Harsin is out. And, it's pretty much this is his season. I mean, he can pretty much do what he likes. Give hell or high water. I mean, he's kind of just in that situation. But we know that Auburn, when it seems like there's nothing, is when they've done the strangest stuff. So can't ever count them out.
Yeah, that Auburn Jesus voodoo. But yeah, no, like you said with Harsin, like you gotta wonder about him. Like he's got nothing to lose this year. Like you said, that might make them dangerous. But I think you also have to wonder, especially if, say they lose to Penn State, or, that October schedule theirs is pretty tough. They get LSU, then at Georgia, at Ole Miss, home for Arkansas. That's a tough October. Things start looking down, like they might just have a 6-6 season.
Depending on that October goes.
He might already be looking at that next stop.
Yeah.
He might already have one eye on, going back out west or something. We don't know with him. That'd be interesting. So A&M, can Jimbo live up to the hype?
It's still one of those situations. Until he does it, I'm not buying it. Just because he hasn't done it.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, you pretty much look at it. Since he's come in, he's pretty much been what Kevin Sumlin was. They win games. They pull off an upset from time to time. We know they beat us in 2012, and the Aggies are going to be so great. And then with Johnny, I mean, they've had some decent seasons with that, but never won the West. And then kind of back to that, they beat us last year. Well, what else did they do? they didn't really leapfrog off that win against us. Like, I mean, some of it may have been the injuries. They had Calzada, who's now at Auburn there.
Who didn't even
Didn't
win their
even
starting
win.
job,
But they had they been the sophomore. I guess he was named the starter at A&M. Saw that today. Haynes King.
Uh, yeah,
Yeah,
Haynes
so
King.
he's a starter there. Just put how he bounces back from that injury. I think if he's as good as what people think he'll be, they're going to be a decent team, but if they actually do it, I'm not buying the hype. I mean, just because Jimbo, since he's been there, always finds a way to a couple letdown games you probably shouldn't lose. We'll see.
For sure. All right. Let's see. Anything interesting about their schedule? Not really.
Yeah, the
We already
Miami
talked
game
about the
is
Miami game, and
interesting.
of course that big tilt Tuscaloosa. Yeah, that's interesting. Week 3, so that'll they do have actually Appalachian State week 2. It's in Texas, it's in College Station, but that's not a
No,
program to
they'll
sneeze
definitely
at.
have to take them
Um,
serious. Because Appalachian State is
yeah.
decent.
All right. Let's move a little east of Texas A&M and go to Baton Rouge. Brian Kelly. Just I'll just give you the floor. Brian Kelly at LSU. How do you think it's going to go, bro?
That's one of those other things. Just when you're at a program like Notre Dame, he wasn't in. I mean, he's did a lot there. I mean, I understand the move, but it's kind of a shocker. You just don't expect someone in good standing to leave a situation like Notre Dame. But there's always that talk. Oh, this is as far as Notre Dame can get. They don't have the talent to beat Alabama, beat Clemson in the playoff semifinals. They're end all be all. They're not going to get to that national title. And I mean, it makes sense. The move makes sense as far as the talent aspect. I mean, you can't ever. There's times they say, "Oh, Notre Dame just doesn't have the talent." Whatever their grades or different requirements of Notre Dame, they're not going to be able to compete with the SEC talent. But now he's at Baton Rouge, so that excuse is out the window. So it'll be interesting. Um, but I mean,
That's one word for it. Yeah.
but you have to look at LSU. I mean, if Les Miles can win the national title, if Ed O can win the national title, and we've seen Brian Kelly make a national title game in 2012 and 2 playoff appearances since. I mean, the possibilities are there. It's just a matter of putting it all together.
Mm-hmm. That's for sure. And they, we talked about their big opening game against Florida State in the Superdome. Right. They have to travel to Auburn this year and to Florida and Arkansas and A&M. So that's a tough road schedule for them. Tough road schedule. And they get a stretch the end of October. They get Ole Miss at home, or we'll start in the beginning or middle. They get at Florida on the 15th of October, then Ole Miss at home the next week. Then they get a bye before Alabama, which is in Baton Rouge. Then they got to go at Arkansas in the season at A&M with a home game against UAB in the middle of that, and they've lost to UAB before. So yeah, I think it's going to be a disaster. It might not be this season that's bad, but I do not think Brian Kelly works at LSU at all. I think that's 3 seasons, maybe max. I think they're going to turn on him quick. At least he's dropped the dumb fake Southern accent.
That was painful.
But if he can continue doing, that was great. But I mean, hey, we get, highly rated tight ends out of it. So, or whatever his little hype videos with recruits that we end up taking. But yeah, I think that's a disaster. I think it'll be fun to watch.
Videos of all time. And I understand why he didn't go.
Yeah, right. Oh no, coach, don't make me do this anymore. Right. Nick Saban doesn't do this shit. No, yeah, I don't know. I think I just think that's going to be fun to watch. It's going to be a shit show. And who knows? Maybe now that he has top talent, or at least the ability to get it, who knows? Maybe we find out Brian Kelly's a really, really good coach, because he did win a lot at Notre Dame. But yeah, it's always sketchy about their schedules. Oh, let's see. Anybody else in the West? Oh, we got Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin, Ole Miss. That's always speaking of crapshoots. Never know what you're going to get there. All right? So, question about Ole Miss: what do you think realistically is their ceiling as a program under Lane Kiffin? Can they actually win? Can they beat Alabama, win the West, win the SEC, challenge for a playoff spot, or are they kind of like last year where they're going to beat everybody else except maybe the best one or two teams on the schedule and maybe sneak into a New Year's Six bowl or something?
Honestly, I think that's their top. I mean, if they very well could go, if they're going 9-3, 10-2, but I don't see them outside of like injuries ever winning the West. I just don't. I mean, Lane Kiffin's always going to keep it interesting. They're going to be in games. Every now and again they're going to give Alabama a run. But outside of maybe 2-3 in the West, I just don't see them getting beyond that. I mean, just to be honest. But, there's always
they're
fun. And Lane Kiffin is always interesting in his Twitter and in his press conferences. He's must-see TV for sure. But
absolutely, yeah. And they're kind of a team that ends the year on a tough schedule. They go, their last 4 games are at A&M, home for Alabama, at Arkansas, and then the Egg Bowl at home. So that'd be interesting. But they could build some momentum going before that. It's not a tough out of conference schedule. They get Kentucky at home, and Vanderbilt's their other SEC East opponent. They get Auburn at home. They do have to go to Baton Rouge to LSU the week before A&M. But they can make some noise. But yeah, I think what you said, what we said, I think their ceiling is probably kind of like last year. They can win about 10, maybe 11 games and get to New Year's Six bowl.
I mean, you do that every year in Oxford and you're a legend. So I mean,
that's true. Yeah, I mean, that's
I mean, they're still bringing Archie back every year as for that 1963 season. So I mean, that just shows you,
right?
Yeah.
Next year will be the 60th anniversary. No, for sure. All right, let's see. That kills all of our big programs. All right, let's do anything to say about any mid-major small conference teams? Is there going to be a Cincinnati this year? They lost Des Ridder, so they might not be as strong.
Team, but there's probably get back to a 9-3, 10-2 type year. Very well could still win the American, but yeah, they're not going to be what they were. But I mean, it was they set out and did what no one had done before and may never do again. With the conference realignment stuff, as far as a mid-major making it to the playoff. I mean, that might be.
Yeah, for sure. I don't really know any other teams out there that can really challenge for a playoff spot in terms of outside the power conferences. BYU's there; they're a solid program. But are they on that level? And you got smaller programs that are good, like we mentioned Appalachian State before, Coastal Carolina. They're good programs, but they're not. They have to do extraordinary things and to make noise in this system, unfortunately, as it goes. Yeah, I'm with you. I don't really see, any mid-major type program really making noise and challenging for a playoff spot this year. But who knows? Maybe we get surprised. That's always fun. All right, so we're done with that. I'm going to put you on spot. Rapid fire. ACC champ.
Clemson.
All right. Big 12 champ.
Might go OU.
OU. All right. Big 10.
Ohio State.
All right. Pac-12.
I'm going USC I think that's the most interesting story.
All right. SEC.
I think Bama runs the table.
All right, let's see. I'm trying to think if I differ. I don't think I differ in any opinions there. I think, yeah, Clemson, OU. I'll go Utah in the Pac-12. That would be my difference.
Okay.
I do think, yeah, OU and Ohio State.
Right.
Yeah, I think Utah will take the Pac-12. I think we beat Georgia in the title game. Yeah. All right. Give me your 4 playoff teams.
4 playoff. I'm gonna go. Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia. I'm gonna go OU unless USC goes undefeated.
Oh, all right. Let's see.
What do you have?
I think you stole mine. I'm definitely going to say Alabama, Georgia, because I think they both go into the SEC title game unbeaten.
Kind of like last year.
Except
I think this year we're both undefeated.
Yeah, I think both teams go in undefeated this year. So I think they're both in regardless, unless we just have some freak thing where like Ohio State and Oklahoma and USC and Clemson are all undefeated, something like that.
Win their conference and possibly someone gets left out.
Yeah. All right. I think, unless you got anything else, buddy, in the world of college football.
Oh, well, I guess from week 0, the biggest thing, of course, is how long before Scott Frost gets fired in Lincoln.
Ooh, that's right. Oh, man, Scott Frost Day did not go well yesterday. Another kind of a bad loss. Let's just say what it is. It's a bad loss. Nebraska should have won that game.
Up 11.
We give all the props to – we give all the props to what Pat Fitzgerald has done at Northwestern, but
for sure.
They're a limited program, man. Like, you can't be losing if you're Nebraska, you shouldn't be losing.
If you want to show that you're going to have a decent year, that's not it. With the national attention, you're the biggest game of the weekend all by yourself. You get the idea of how, it'd be interesting just to see how long he lasts at this point, if he lasts the season in Lincoln or not, more or less.
For sure, yeah. I think that was about all there really was to talk about week 0, other than congratulations to all those fans at that game that got free beer because the internet went down in the stadium.
How epic is that?
I know, right? That never happened to us.
I guess Vandy.
All right, Greg, you are new here. Oh, right. Oh, man, yeah. Woo. Jumping on them. All right, Greg, you're new here to the Alabama Take, so we do something here called Done Up Real Good. Just means, hey, man, what's going on good in your life? What's good for you this week? So what is done up real good for you this week?
Done up real good this week. Kids back in school, and I can still help them with their math homework.
Homework you look at and go, oh, shit, no.
Yeah.
I don't remember this long division. No.
Yeah. Guess you have a little longer to get there.
Yeah, I still got some years.
Yeah.
Still a few years for that. But I'll say as far as I go, done up real good. It's football season, baby. Like that's what's real good.
It was a long off season, but we're here. It was an interesting off season.
Long off season.
Very interesting off season. A lot of craziness, but we're here, and week 1 should be an epic start to the season. A lot of big matchups. Can't wait.
For sure. And that should be it, folks. We'll be back next week. We'll probably do an NFL preview for y'all, talk some more football, talk a little bit about what happens next week, week 1 in the college football world. We hope to bring you this show. You'll be listening to this on Monday, we hope, if everything goes good. My first time editing a podcast. And we hope to bring you it weekly for the most part during football season at least. And we hope you stay with us. Peace out.
All right.
Thank you once again for listening to Taking on Sports. Be sure to rate us and subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts from. Be sure to tell anyone who you think would be interested to give us a listen. Tell your friends and family, and especially tell your rich friends and family, because, baby, we want some of that sweet, sweet investor money. Until next time, peace out.